I'm almost upset that Peter's on. And I know he's listening, but just let me explain, Peter. I'm almost upset that he's on because I'm like 90% of the way through Football Morning in America, and it's riveting. It's riveting, and I have to interrupt this reading to actually talk to the man, which is a gift. And he is live in Vegas, and he is joining us right now on Willard and Dibs, as he always does. The great Peter King, Boxer and Gerson guest line, Odyssey NFL Insider. Peter King, Insider Calls brought to you by Old Spice. Men have skin too. Hello, Peter.
Hey, good to be with you guys. Hello, how are you?
We're fantastic, and we're reading all about it, and we were talking about it a short time ago. You're right along with Kyle Shanahan. We want to hear all about it, but one line in your article so far stands out to me. You write, you can hear it in Kyle's voice. He's excited to have the last pick in the draft on his side in this game going against Patrick Mahomes. Peter, what exactly was it that you heard?
What I heard, he talks about his own. First of all, he loves Patrick. He thinks he's fantastic. Who couldn't? Who wouldn't think that? But one of the things about Brock Purdy that we talked about is just the simple fact. He brought it up that he said it's comical how many people are down on Purdy and don't think he's that good and think that they're winning in spite of Brock Purdy. And he made this point that if Joe Montana played now, how do you think people would view him? He doesn't run around like Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes. So they would view him like, oh, how good can this guy be? He doesn't have the greatest arm, and all this stuff. And then he made the point that, it's comical. And the reason why he thinks that all these people just minimize what he does, the reason is that he was picked low in the draft. He's not Mr. Tools. He's not the 5-tool superstar. And look, even though he did run for 52 yards in a 15-minute span last week in the championship game, he's not as good a runner, obviously, as Mahomes is. But I just got this sense that we got what we need, and he's happy to have this guy as a quarterback. And look, one of the things, obviously, we talked about is the whole Brady thing. But his point, and I mean, you probably read it, and I'm sure it's been clipped out of my story and run in the media there in San Francisco, is that, listen, he wasn't positive that Purdy and Trey Lance, although I think he really meant Purdy a lot more than Lance, he wasn't sure whether he's going to be healthy at the start of the season. And so this was Tom Brady, even though if you sign Brady, Brady's playing, they signed him basically because Brock Purdy, or they tried to sign him basically because Purdy had surgery, major surgery, exactly 6 months from the first game of the season. So anyway, those are a few things that were interesting in the ride.
No, fantastic stuff. And the idea of a revisit with Tom Brady, I think, caught many of us by surprise. And now here we are some 4 or 5 months later, and Kyle Shanahan's there with Brock Purdy. And where do you think the confidence level is, not only with Brock Purdy, but for Kyle Shanahan in general with this team the second go-round after the heartbreak that happened 4 years ago?
Well, I know that there's an awful lot of people who believe that, oh, Kyle's got to win this game. He's going to get branded with the, can't win the big one if he doesn't win this game. And, I mean, obviously, anytime you're in a Super Bowl, you want to win. And if you don't win, it's crushing disappointment and all that. But I don't think Kyle Shanahan looks at any game where the quarterback on the other side is Patrick Mahomes and says, if we lose, we're a bunch of losers. I just don't feel that he believes that. Now, clearly, I'm reminded this is my 40th Super Bowl. The first one I ever covered was in 1985 at Stanford in Palo Alto, January of '85, and that was the Montana Marino Super Bowl. And obviously, Joe won the game, outplayed Marino, and after the game, everybody was saying, "Hey, Dan, don't worry about it. You're going to get back here. You'll be back." He never got back. So that's why every time you get in this game, you can't leave anything undone. You can't leave any stone unturned. And that's why I just believe that, the 49ers are going to be ready to play their best game. And, the other team is going to have a lot to do with whether they actually are able to play that best game.
We're talking with Peter King. Insider calls are brought to you by Old Spice Gentleman's Blend Body Wash, providing exfoliation plus 24/7 moisturization because men have skin too. Another great nugget in there, Peter, is Kyle's telling you about when he was the guy holding the wire behind his dad in the Super Bowl many years ago, and this is coming on the heels of the NFC having won 13 Super Bowls in a row. And so Kyle's like, well, the AFC always loses. So he says to his dad the day before the game, Dad, do you really think you have a chance to win this game, Broncos versus Packers? And Mike Shanahan is like, are you kidding me? We're definitely going to win this game. And they do. And, Peter, I've learned this through the years, too. Coaches sometimes, they sort of have a feeling, right? They're doing the game planning, and it's like, I think we got – so I'd love for you to speculate. You sat with Kyle. Did you notice anything? Does Kyle think they're going to win this one?
Well, I'm going to defer that question, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because I rode to work with Shanahan last Tuesday. So he told me he hadn't even finished watching the Kansas City-Baltimore tape yet. And he had so many things going on.
Right.
Obviously, when you win the Super Bowl, you got all these logistics to worry about. But I will be shocked if right now, if I made that ride with Kyle, if he didn't figure we have the recipe to win this game, because that's who Kyle Shanahan is. He's just like his dad.
And thinking about that recipe, what do you think it is, Peter, in terms of facing Kansas City? Is it as simple as keeping Mahomes off the field, or is there something more that the Shanahan offense can do against the Kansas City defense that's much improved from 4 years ago?
I know what I would be thinking, okay? You want to give Patrick Mahomes the fewest number of possessions that you can. And in order to do that, what you saw late, what I thought that Josh Allen did very well, they just didn't finish it late in their game against Kansas City, is milk the clock very effectively, because they didn't want Kansas City to be able to get the ball back if they scored. So anyway, the deal is, I believe that they will want to, essentially, they will want to milk the clock as much as possible and limit the number of possessions. And I think in order to do that, the thing they're going to have to do, the thing that I believe is really important in this game, is limiting Isaiah Pacheco. He has been an absolute piece of gold in these playoffs. And in my opinion, Mahomes is going to do his thing. He's going to make some plays. Kelsey and they're going to get good things done. But the problem is, as I see, if they have a diverse offense that day, I think that it's going to be hard for San Francisco to win unless they limit the number of possessions that they allow Mahomes.
Peter, you know how many eyes are on this 49ers defensive line, and especially in these playoffs, it has felt at times like they are underperforming all the way to the point where we're having conversations about their effort level with Chase Young and others. Did you talk to Kyle about that at all? Because to me, Super Bowl week should not be the week where a player has to be reminded about effort.
No, I didn't. I didn't talk to him, but you can tell from what the Niners have said, he's been talked to, and he knows that that's not going to be tolerated. So I don't think you're going to see that in the Super Bowl, personally.
Are you surprised that was even a thing for a team that had such a great defense for the better part of the regular season? Then you got to the postseason, and that kind of reared its ugly head in that spot?
I thought it was shocking. And, I think if you talk to people in Washington, they'll tell you that that doesn't surprise them. So, look, I just don't think that's going to happen again, and I just don't think it's going to happen again. And if it does, the world will be watching, because CBS has 165 cameras at this game, and I will bet you they will ISO on Chase Young quite a bit in this game.
Peter King with us on Willard and Dibs, as he is every single week. Peter, what did you make of this entire conversation about the practice facility and the sod at UNLV? To what level do the 49ers have a gripe?
I don't know enough about it to comment intelligently. I just know that the Niners were ticked off by it, and they were looking at the how Kansas City was handling things. And Kansas City has a luxurious facility. And for a while, I think they said we need to double up in that facility, which I just don't think the Chiefs were ever going to agree to, in part because it was going to affect their schedule. Now, everybody wants to sing Kumbaya and think, oh, Kansas City was, bad to not let that happen. But if you put the shoe on the other foot, I doubt if San Francisco had the great facility, I doubt they would want to share it with Kansas City. But again, look, I don't think that's going to be a big factor in the game.
What do you think the biggest factor will be in the game? Is it as simple as the Niners being able to contain Travis Kelce and make the wide receivers beat him on offense?
I think it's the Niners being able to contain Isaiah Pacheco, because I think he has been a huge difference maker in this postseason. And I mean, look, everybody, it's so ironic, because obviously Purdy, the 262nd pick in the draft, the 251st pick in the 22 draft was Pacheco. And now those two guys, and I'm not one of these gambler guys, but I would bet those guys would be in the top 5, those two players, if you look at the odds for who's going to win the MVP of this game.
Peter, let's go back to the ride along with Kyle Shanahan, and here's something else that I didn't know, and I found this really interesting, and I wonder if it's a perception changer. This idea that the Niners got lucky with Brock Purdy because he's sitting there at the very end in the 7th round. Kyle sharing with you that he had a 4th-round grade on Brock Purdy and essentially had his eye on him the entire week. For you, does that sort of change the whole narrative around the Niners lucking into him based on the fact that Kyle kind of had his eyes on him early?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think the more accurate way to put it, honestly, would be that Kyle may have had a 4th-round grade on him, but because they traded the house for Trey Lance the previous year. They just couldn't, they had so many other needs that they ignored by making that huge trade for Lance. They just couldn't pick him in the fourth. And he didn't think they could pick him at all. But then as they got going and they saw how incredible it was that Purdy was still there, as you get into the 250s. And then obviously John York, the chair of the 49ers, York the elder, at one point just said to him, hey, because they were arguing about who they should pick. And York basically said, hey, who's the best player on the board? And Kyle said, no doubt it's Purdy. He goes, what are we arguing about? What are we saying here? And so I think that honestly got to be something that it had the potential of being something that was divisive. And I think John York diffused that divisiveness.
I love the fact that the John York part of the story was injected, Peter, because many of us have thought that John and Denise, by proxy, have been completely out of the picture. But knowing what we know about Brock Purdy and pick 262, is that a bigger coup, or is it the Christian McCaffrey absolute swindle by trading 4 picks for a guy who you listed as one of your top 53 players of all time?
Yeah, I think the thing I would say about this that is so interesting is that you have to know when to make a decision. And look, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch would admit, very readily that they've made their share of mistakes. You look at the first round of their first draft, and they made 2 of them. So a lot of this is basically, the Carolina Panthers gambled that if they had a back who, because of injury the 2 previous years, had been devalued. And so because he had been devalued, the 49ers were able to get him for, a lesser, make a lesser trade for him. But I just think that anytime you pick a quarterback with the last pick in the draft, and in his first year, he leads you to the conference championship game, and in the second year, he leads you to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's one of the great stories of all time. So, I think as great as the McCaffrey story is, I think the Purdy story eclipses it.
Peter King with us here on Willard and Dibs. Peter, I'm going to leave all the names on the board and just ask it open-ended. Of all individuals, who has the most to gain by winning this game Sunday?
Brock Purdy. Imagine you're in your second year in the NFL. You're the 262nd pick in the draft, and you come in and you have a head-to-head matchup with far and away, easily, no doubt, the best quarterback in the game, with a brilliant tactician in Andy Reid, and you do enough against a brilliant defensive tactician and a good, really good defense run by Steve Spagnuolo, and you win that game. I mean, Brock Purdy is never buying a meal again for the rest of his life in any community in the northern coast of California.
My partner is glass half full, Peter, and I'm the glass half empty guy. So
Yep.
in counterpoint to his question, who has the most to lose in this game?
See, I'm one who doesn't believe it's Kyle Shanahan.
Oh.
I just don't. And I'll tell you why. Dan Quinn is the guy in the first game when you say, how do you blow a 28-3 lead? And I get it. Shanahan they got 2 first downs in the last 28 minutes of the game. So that's bad. But he's not the one who allowed a team to score 31 unanswered points, in the last, 19 minutes of the game, whatever it was, I forget. But so I don't think it's Shanahan. I honestly think that the person who would have the most to lose would be a guy we don't really know right now, because I don't think on the surface, if it isn't Shanahan, that you can pick a guy right now. I mean, what if Purdy throws 4 interceptions? What if he kind of revisits his performance, when they played Baltimore? Well, that would be quite a bit for him to lose. And then you're going to have all the people who analyze this game basically saying, okay, bubble burst, they got to get a new quarterback, which, by the way, I can tell you this right now, they will not do, no matter what happens in this game. This is Brock Purdy's job.
Peter King, great stuff. And from your article, boldface names, you write 81 readers. That's how many of them have written in to give you tips to get rid of your 10-week cough. Which tips are you using, Peter?
The biggest one is that I'm on a sort of a nuclear acid reflux medication, which has helped, but it hasn't solved it. I've been on that now for 6 days, and I'm better, but I'm not great. And so I'm sort of hoping that, when I get back from this, I'll go back to the doctor and I'll basically say, okay, what are we going to try now? So, we'll see. It's just one of those things that is annoying because it really, really impacts my sleep. And I maybe get 4 or 5 hours every night. So, you wake up and you're tired.
Ugh.
So that's what's been a bummer about it. But
yeah.
Anyway,
it's been a tough winter.
Life goes on.
Yeah, it sure has. Well, Peter, just the perfect thing for a cough. Las Vegas. Have a great trip, and thank you so much for hopping on as always.
All the best, guys. Thank you.
All right, to you as well. That was Odyssey NFL insider Peter King. Insider calls are brought to you by Old Spice. Men have skin